In lifespanning, there is no plan B. I'm Jean Fallacara, and my guests are coming to this podcast for a reason. There's no rules, no BS, just pure biohacking. I don't want to know what you have to sell. I want to know who you are. Welcome to the No Plan B podcast. Today I have a fantastic guest, Brad Inman, and we are going to talk about something that is thrilling and happening right in the corner of where I live in Palm Beach, the Livelong Summit. Brad, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining. It's an honor for me to have you here.
Oh, Jean, thank you. It's an honor. Your reputation precedes this, and you've been in this field a long time, and I'm just learning about it. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. I've been in this field for a long time, but you've been in the media industry for a longer time than I have. The longevity and biohacking in general has been probably putting my life where it is now. And it's the same for you. But why don't we start by you telling us a bit where you're coming from and then your story, because you have an exciting and very thrilling story that gives the whole sense of what you are doing with the Livelong Summit. Please.
Sure. Well, the reason I'm probably on this podcast is, just the last 2 years, I would say. I sold a company. I had some leisure time, and I was kind of French says a luxury nomad. And I was bored to tears, John. And because I'm a starter of companies, and I love working with teams of people, and was a journalist as a young man, so I'm curious. And so I went on this personal search. I have a good life, and I have wonderful children and grandchildren, and a beautiful wife, and smart wife, and a great partner, and great friends. And I just didn't want to end this thing. And so I started, and I did it a little late in my life because I ran hard, played hard.
Never too late.
Yeah, so I decided to see if I could reinvent some of these things that I had let the wires run loose in my body. And in that search, I started reading, of course, about everything the billionaires were doing. And then I started, exploring. I spent a lot of time in California in and around the Silicon Valley. So I was always intrigued by what the entrepreneurs and innovators were doing, and of course read about that. And I started finding out that there was a ton of information out there I didn't know about. And there was a lot of treatments and testing and ways to monitor and discover, what's in your body. As I always say, we talk about, we don't understand what's in outer space, John, and we don't understand what's in the deep sea, but I didn't know shit about what was in my own body. Yeah. And so I went on that self-discovery. And in doing so, it hit me one day, like, this is kind of crazy. There's charlatans in one extreme, peddling stuff that's obviously BS. And at the other extreme were elite doctors and PhDs who, that often, at least when I have good doctors, but they don't have time of day. They're too busy, stamping out customers and dealing with health insurance. Yeah. And I realized that there was a middle lane here. And so I got into this because of my own self-discovery, and that's how it happened. That's why I wound up doing what I'm doing.
But at the end of the day, you said something's very interesting, like we don't know the ocean, we don't know the space yet. But even our body, with all the discoveries that we've been through and that have been done through the years, look, 2 years ago, we didn't even know that a big organ was present in our stomach, producing all sorts of neurotransmitters. And this is the beauty of where we're going today. It's at the speed of light because of several high-level thinker and doctors and researchers. I'm a big fan of one of your guests, David Sinclair. I think he's been always at the top in that research of the quest of longevity. But we're not close to know everything, but we're moving so fast. And I see that the biohacking industry, which they were the first trying stuff on themselves, some died in the process, some survived. But in the long run, we see people living longer, better. And what's your dream in what you're doing with this? Because you said you're coming in this industry now because of your own story and your own approach. but you are an entrepreneur, you are a clever man, you are a builder. What's the goal? What's the purpose?
Yeah, I don't want to bore you with my past, but I started out as a journalist, and a journalist is trained to be curious and hear all sides and deliver then understandable, take complex information, interpret it, and deliver it to the average back in the day, a family that read the newspaper, that they could understand it in language that they could understand it. And the second part of my life was an entrepreneur and a disruptor. I think I like a little controversy always. And I've been involved in industries that were arcane and old-fashioned and, that were in need of some disruption. And I say this, I want to be careful when I talk about the medical, I'll call it the medical profession. We can call it all kinds of different things, Jean, but one is there's a good reason why our lifespans today are, what is it in the U.S., 75 versus
78, I think, or 75, for men and 78 for women, And
at one time it was 40, and science,
not a while ago,
right?
Yeah.
And so what do we, in the free world at least, what do we attribute that to? Well, science and the traditional medical profession. So while I think there's something broken and needs to be disrupted, I also believe strongly that what got us here was a distinguished history of believing in scientific discovery and innovation. And so I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. In fact, when I talk to my team about it, I go, I like all this new cool stuff. It's my nature, but I'm suspicious of them as suspicious I am of the medical establishment. And I think the important thing that as I've disrupted the world is try to connect those two worlds. In fact, I have a conference in one vertical I was in real estate where we connected the new technology kids with the old established guard. And together, I think we helped make a lot of change disrupting that industry. But it's true of everything I've been in. Like I'm involved in climate change and built a database of, again, democratizing climate data. It used to be that the PhDs, the academics, the universities...
Our society likes to make things complex so they feel that we are the elites.
Jean, you nailed it. And so all this data was there, but they were unwilling to give it to the public. And so we've been, really trying to do that. And I did it in digital media and I did it in ebooks, where the publishers held on to their relationships and didn't, so all it's about democratizing things. And I don't pretend to have some big, grandiose, go to space, Mars vision here. I'm just kind of a worker bee trying to contribute to things that, hopefully make the world a better place. But rooted in content, legitimate content. I get most inspired and motivated by really valuable, credible content. And then we have people like you, Jean, as, journalists and others that are independent to ask the hard question of all the experts, even Dr. Sinclair and the biohackers, and make sure that when the public leaves this event we're holding, that they feel like they've gotten all sides. And we're not putting anybody in a pedestal. As I always say, who I put in a pedestal is my reader. And in this case, the woman that flies all the way from Omaha and sitting in a plastic chair for 2 days, she's who I'm up there for. And that's all part of that spirit of democratizing information and giving it to the public.
I love it. That's exactly what we're trying to do as well, is like, because I feel that these days, of course, the longevity and the biohacking industry and everything around life optimization is going at the speed of light. But there is so much BS in between and so much fake information. And sometimes what hurts me the most is seeing high-level speakers and doctors saying irrational or nonsense advice to the public. And I think it's our role just to be there and make sure that even we all make mistakes, okay? But if you make mistakes with the purpose of gaining traction and attention, then you have lost your faith in what you're doing. And we're trying to be there like you are, trying to be fair with everyone and give this accessible to everyone. You said some things that I love. In a way, it's at the beginning, we were talking about longevity in general, and you said like the elite were using these tools, implementing this. I've always struggled, that's my Robin Hood side, with the fact that longevity was accessible only to rich people for too long. It's time now that everyone has access to what is out there. And I think people like you can help doing that with what you're doing.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, we have a broken medical system here and a broken insurance system. And So it makes it hard when, I don't know, I won't even make up a statistic here. I'm sure there is one, but how much of the dollar that goes to alleged medical care goes to insurance and middlemen and all these, I have no clue, but so we're not going to solve that, but what we would like to do is get all the information that the very wealthy and the elite have and give it to the public. And some of this, as we know, is free. Like you can control your diet without, spending $2,500 for a full body scan. You can, and then I think all of these things, hopefully with time, if you expose the public and create demand from the public, and then Silicon Valley is good at creating competition, at least in the early days of an innovation cycle, then the prices would come down and we'll give access to all of these expensive treatments. But I've noticed a lot of them are coming down. These multi-cancer blood tests, the prices are coming down. So there's a lot of things that are just inherently not accessible, but then there's other things that people can do. But for now, we think information is free, and let's give information to the public so that they can understand this. And it's a long, treacherous, controversial road, but you know that so well.
Yeah, but that's our role. It's even if it's it's not because it's a long road that we shouldn't be there and try to start it, because otherwise we're going to be on a status quo for the rest of our lives and then wait for the next one to start it. We're here. We have a mission. Let's do it. Let's make it. Not for the legacy of it, but for what is coming after. If it's in 3 generations from us that people will live to 150, fine. At least we started. I do believe that we're going to live up to 150 in our generations and not that far. And
is that your generation, Jean, or mine?
Yeah. Are you so far from mine?
Well, I'm a couple decades further along the path, I think. Another thing that's happening, and this is where I always kind of like popular culture. I'm not one that condemns it, and I particularly most great, cool pop culture, whether it be music, I come from young people, and we have this incredibly diverse audience coming. It's young. Yeah. It's Gen X and it's old. And someone said, well, the young people, it's just vanity. And I said, and them taking pictures of themselves all the time. I said, hey, if it's vanity, I don't care. Let vanity be the motivation. And, I know some people think they're not vain, but most everyone's vain, and to a degree or not. And so I think all these things are coming together because there's clearly a relationship to leading a healthy life and being healthy and how you look. I saw a woman just about an hour ago in a grocery store, and I could tell she was like taking care of herself. Like you could see it in her eyes and her face, and she wasn't necessarily full of joy, but you could tell it, and you can see it in people's eyes and face. And and it's easy for me to say this, particularly because people that have little children and they don't have the economic means, and they don't have time to take care of themselves, and their lives are inherently stressful. And so I don't want to be stupid about this, but I do think, we have a whole infrastructure for health. We have a whole system, and for a lot of people, it's not working very well. So we need to help people figure out what some of these solutions are, and that's our goal.
Yeah, I agree on that. And I think that, thanks God that the next generation are interested in that, because my generation was more about smoking and partying and drinking. Next gen is more about paying attention to your health and doing the right stuff. And I think that we are made of energy. So I agree with you. You feel it when someone pays attention to the body or his health or whatsoever. And remember, the first biohacker are the women, because they start paying attention to their health right away when they're kids. We're not, as men, educated the same way. You have 50 speakers, some things like that. Great lineup there. And
I like to flood it with content. And because the belief I have is that if there's enough content, every single person there will come away with something that either inspires them or helps them understand something or helps them ask the right questions. I always say at events, that's why we're very interactive. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. And so we really did flood it with really good speakers. Our hardest thing was deciphering who was credible, and I'm not sure we got it 100%, but we're certainly trying. But if we hear something at stage sounds weird, we have some really clever journalists that will ask tough questions. But yeah, we have we have 50 speakers. We have, we have interactive sessions that go on where The end goal in all of this is, for me, I believe in the wisdom of crowds, John. I think that collectively people are smarter than experts in the end. And so we have all these interactive sessions, and that's about people sitting around in small groups talking about very specific subjects like, should I take Ozempic? Do I need to eat a bucket of blueberries, like Michael Greger says? Well,
wake up and go outside in the morning.
Yeah, and get sunshine. So those small groups will do one of two things. They'll give people information. We'll have expert facilitators, but more importantly, they're going to meet like-minded people like themselves. Yeah. And the end goal in that is creating a community, because the strength of a community is that wisdom of crowds. Together, the most powerful force, I think, in humanity is people coming together with a good cause, uncorrupted, by the experts about money and power, and more about, we're here together. So people are going to make contacts, build relationships, and in those relationships, they're going to find people that may suffer from the same disease they do, or who have tried something they've been thinking of trying, and where they get the real story from a real person, not someone peddling or selling that product. So that's one thing that's very exciting to me, and something I've been able to do in all the businesses I started, is build a community. And I think there's communities here, like your community, the biohacking community. Wow, powerful group of people. And obviously the doctors have their community of people, but the public doesn't have that. And so we're hoping to build a community of people that not just share in the innovation and all of that, but they also just share in this general goal of, how do I get healthier and live longer and less stressful and better lives? And so I think we'll learn from each other.
Yeah, I would dream of that, like building this community that joins all the extreme and everyone in the middle, because, the biohacking community is powerful and more powerful thanks to Brian Johnson, which is a speaker as well, because before Brian, when you were saying the word biohacking, people were just like, are you insulting me? Or that's a big word. Yeah. It's the perception of it is kind of not accurate enough. I created another word for what we're doing, is lifespanning, just extending life.
I like that.
Yeah. It's going to be in the dictionary next year.
Yeah, I like that. I started a lot of companies in the Bay Area, and couldn't afford the rent in San Francisco. So many of us settled into a community called Emeryville. And that community is stuck between Berkeley, California, and in Oakland, California. And Oakland had a lot of crime problems and other issues, tax problems. So entrepreneurs didn't want to go there. But it became the center, Emeryville, of biotechnology companies back in the day, the early ones, the real innovators And they didn't want to go to Berkeley, because Berkeley said these companies are going to turn they're testing on sheep, but they're going to turn humans into sheep, or so. Just extraordinary claims, And out of Berkeley, where one of the best universities in the world is, UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
So you're right about the FUD. You've heard of that, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Critics,
yes.
Critics of innovation use FUD all the time to disrupt the disruptors, because they are just stuck in fear. But it's people. We often fear things we don't know. And I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a little boy, I was from farm country in Southern Illinois, and I had a favorite Aunt Margie, who lived on a farm. And I had my father, who I respected very much, and they debated politics all the time. My dad was more conservative and she was more liberal, and it was a healthy debate. And but I would drive with my dad 30 miles to visit my aunt. Nothing made me happier to sit in a room with those two arguing in a nice way on this farmhouse. And one time my dad, he was traveling to New York. He was a small town retailer. He was going to go buy some goods in New York, and he was all excited about it. And my Aunt Margie railed against New York City, just went on and on how bad New York was. And on the drive home, and I really liked my Aunt Margie, I said to my dad, Dad, why doesn't Aunt Margie like New York City? And my father turned to me and said, Bradley, she's never been there. So fear often comes from things we don't even know, and we somehow fear something we don't even know, and that often translates into FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so you just you have to fight that.
Yeah, I agree. Racism came from the same concept. War started because of that. I think our society has been driven for around this principle. It's funny because, on my LinkedIn profile, I used to have innovate, create, or disappear. And and for me, it was a motto, like you need to disrupt in a way or the other the world as it is. Otherwise, we're not going to create any change. And this is our goal. I want to jump back and circle back just for a minute about what you said about creating this community. You are a very brilliant man, and that.
Don't get carried away, Jean.
And as we all know.
Maybe remove the very. Okay. I don't think about brilliant.
You are a brilliant man.
I'm a nice guy.
You're a nice guy. That's for sure. But that vanity, as you said before, can drive people pulling the cord in their direction, and building a community can be challenging because of that principle. Everyone wants to build their own community. How do you foresee or think about the tool that you're going to use to build the community you are dreaming to build around the longevity and the Livelong Summit?
Well, I've been in digital media, and I've been in your world. One summer during COVID did 65 podcasts in the summer because I had a community that was very in fear, so we poured on information. I've done online communities, online groups, online video, online ebooks, online everything. And I think all of that is fantastic. And that's certainly a way to build community. But I think in the longevity principles somewhere, you could correct me, Jean, but I think social interaction is always identified as like, we have a speaker, a very famous speaker from UCLA who is a scientist, a neuroscientist, and he's proven, as others have, that the connection between emotional health and the dangers of physical health are tied together, and one leading cause of that is being isolated, alone. And so I really believe in that. I don't know about the science. I'll let him speak to that at our conference. But so if your goal was to, let's say, create that community, I have found through doing events for 30 some years that the best way to create it, better than anything I've done digitally, and I believe in all that, social groups and Facebook groups and every imaginable group, is for people to connect human to human. So that has a more, I think, lasting, people can cancel Facebook. So they went one day from being your friend and now they kind of disappear. They don't exist. And that can happen in real life. But when you get together with someone, like in our events, we notice, and we hold, in one business I have, we hold them every 6 months. But if someone has to miss it for a reason, the FOMO is overwhelming. It's much more overwhelming than when you miss someone online. And the physical connection is really, really, really powerful. So I love events for that reason, that I see people when they haven't seen each other in a few months reconnect. And they've shared war stories in between the time they were together, and they've been through a lot digitally together. And what a great advancement in that whole concept. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, having that partner, that someone you have coffee with in the morning. I think Johnny Cash was once asked, what's the happiest thing you've ever done in your life? And you might imagine it was giving a concert with Bob Dylan or in Folsom Prison or something. But he said having coffee with June. So the thing that brought him the most joy and the most happiness in his life was connection with his partner. So that's why I love live events. And during COVID, we thought, it's the end of them. We're going to do everything by Zoom. And I like this thing we're doing right now,
but
Sean,
it's not the same. Yeah,
I can't wait to meet you.
Yeah, same here.
I'd like to know. I'd like to know how tall you are and whether you squeeze my hand tightly and whether you look me in the eye. And
very short.
Now I can't even look you in the eye. I'm supposed to look at the camera. I can't look at you. I mean, that's screwed up. Like this works, but it doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I love live events. I just think they're the best for creating community and creating connection. And I guess what I'm told by the experts is it increases your longevity to have social connections. Sure. So we're contributing to that too.
Yeah. We are a social animal anyway, and it is true. It is proven as meditation can extend social connection with sleep is probably among the strongest factor of longevity. So now
you asked, by the way, about Brian Johnson. I listened to a podcast with him the other day, and I was blown away. But I'm a little worried. Does he have enough social connection going? I hope he does. I feel like he's in some bubble. I know he has children, but are you connecting enough, Brian? I want you to, be with real people.
I think he connects very well with his family, his son and his father.
Good.
Yeah, and it's interesting because talking about Brian, when I looked at him at the beginning, he was starting this project, and I read the book Zero, Don't Die, From Zero, Don't Die, and I was just like, what the? But now I see where he's going, and I think this boy is clever in the process. Okay, it's this lab animal that we're testing and like taking measurement and everything. My only concern is, for now, he's improving his life. What's going to be the slam back in his system, the reaction, the overreaction of his overall body in the long run? And those are the questions I want to ask him as well. But it takes some people like that to disrupt, to go further.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of everything he's doing. What I love is his data, because everything else is a swag. I think it's right. No, you don't know anything until you get data. One book I want to read after listening to that podcast, because I used to write about economics a lot, is I think it was called The Economics of Life. I think that's the title, which I have not read. But, I'm a big fan of the idea that
statistics and data,
all that's tied to often economics and mathematics, at least I've found in my life.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm obsessed with mathematics as well because of all the potential and possibilities we have to calculate and to forecast and to extend to so many aspects of our lives and businesses and principle and everything. March 15, 16, we're talking
Correct.
about that.
Yeah, we start at 3:00, and we're going to open with Dr. Sinclair, and he'll talk for about 45 minutes. And then we set up a system where people in the audience can ask questions, a very efficient system. And then we have, it goes on and on all afternoon. And then we're going to do some fun stuff. I've got a partner in crime, a co-host, and this is where we're adding what I think is important to my health span is, again, interaction, fun, dancing,
joy,
music.
Yeah.
We're going to do some really offbeat things. And we try to bend, that's kind of how we choreograph things, serious lectures with something. So I have this woman, Maytel Duhan, who's a very famous actress in Israel and done a lot of movies here. She's a dancer, a singer, and she's a health fanatic. Her and I have totally different personal philosophies about something, not philosophies, but, like I take Ozempic and she would never put a needle in her body. I get acupuncture. She would never put a needle in her body. So we disagree in that we have these debates. She's a health fanatic, but she has a different view of it all than I do, just because all of us are different, right? I mean, that's the beauty of DNA.
Yeah.
And one thing I've learned, this well, Jean, is this field has really come to believe there isn't an aspirin for everybody. Everybody's different. Each individual's different. Our DNA is different. And everybody has a different, treatment set of tests, reactions, responses that are emotional sometimes, and that's important as well. So she's going to be up there, and she does some really fun stuff on stage. Then we're bringing in a music meditation thing, and then we're bringing an art dimension, because if you look at all the sorrowful things in life, the only way people survived in prison and all these horrible places, art and nature, whether it was a little green sprout or whether it was a drawing on the wall, it saved people. And then, like I say, a lot of interactive things. And the next day, we're going to launch with we've got Andrew Steele coming across the pond. He's
beautiful mind.
Yeah, right. I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, I love him. Yeah.
And then again, a lot of then we break into tracks for special things. Like we have one on the killers, which is I've learned is cancer, it's heart disease, it's, let's see, what is it? What am I missing? There's medical mistakes is a big killer, and there's diabetes. And so people that come with those particular problems, we're going to have a whole thing on wearables. Does any of this stuff make sense?
I don't have any.
Yeah, well, see, we want to hear why people don't, and so that, like, Michael Greger we had a prep call with him, and I said, "Do you have this ring?" And he goes, "No, what's that?" I mean, I'm not sure he doesn't know, but so there's a lot of varied opinions, and I really hope that what we've curated is a way to digest all of this, and constantly the moderator's interpreting for the public what it means, and it comes down to something where you leave with maybe a blueprint for yourself, or at least the next steps or the unanswered questions. So that's kind of the lay of the land.
I love it. It's like more an experience than an exhibition or some sort of conference. And I love the fact that people can jump into it, be immersed into the experience and learn from it. Going back on wearable, I'm not against wearable at all. It's just like I've been in this biohacking for so long that I can tell you if my body is missing one element or something just by interoception increased. And I've learned with wearable. And I think that
that's so insightful. Yeah. John, see, I was ignorant. I was working too hard, raising kids, partying too hard. I didn't have time to, even recognize my sleep was so screwed up. And I had 3 stints in my heart, and I now know why. Like, my heart was racing at night. I wasn't resting. I was damaging my heart with not only cholesterol, but how I treated it. And so unlike you, I didn't have any body awareness at all. So that's why I say I'm there for you, because I think you understand where I come from, the public. And most of us are, not everybody, I was a nerd behind a computer, and all my friends were jogging. And they were getting healthy, but they have broken knees and they have broken shoulders, and I don't have any because I was sitting behind a computer. But I got fat and sloppy and had heart disease. So, I think that's the kind of general condition of the American public. And I hope all this innovation by the billionaires and by the Silicon Valley and people like you, we can bring along another 200 million people that were like me, ruining their body and had no self-awareness.
I so agree with that. I think that, there is just a balance in between and I understand the fact that some people want to be in front of a computer for work, for achieving something in their life and building up empires or whatsoever. But it's all about a balance in your life. If you take the time with normal and simple steps, like, instead of taking a pill to digest your meal, if you make the effort of just walking 20 minutes, you're not ingesting any chemicals, and the effect is exactly the same. Plus, you have done 20-minute meditation. So you add on these things one after the other. But it's educational. It's all about education. When you spoke before about the medical field and side, what is the dilemma in this is, like, we have great doctors, but the system they have been learning through at university, it's been teaching them to give pills to solve a problem instead of, if you look at Chinese medicine, for example, if you go to the doctor, you're considered like really sick because it's more preventative. And I think the longevity work we all do together, it's to get there. It's to make people aware that you can prevent so many disease and so many problems, but you need to know how to do it. And
it's like taking that walk doesn't cost you anything. I just did something for fun. I have a great doctor at NYU here in Palm Beach that I had in New York who, they put my stints in 12 years ago. And so I really admire them and respect them. They're the best of that profession. But I decided to turn on my, what do you call it when you time something, your clock? Stopwatch.
Yeah.
How much time I spent when I visited him talking about money, insurance, and other things, and being taken around from person to person, to this test, to that test. And I spent, out of 30 minutes, 18 minutes with my doctor and 22 minutes on bureaucracy. I live in Europe half the time where my medical care is great. Guess what? You never talk to anybody when you go see a doctor in Paris. You don't talk about insurance. You know why? Because medical care is free. There's no bureaucracy. Also, there's no greeters. No one's weighing you. And I asked my doctor in Paris, why don't you weigh people here like in the United States? He goes, well, one, we respect the dignity of you. We think it could be insulting. Two, we think you're smart enough to know that you're overweight. And so we don't start out by embarrassing in front of everybody. Get on the scale. And so somehow we built up this system here that who wants to go to a doctor? As much as I love my doctor, I have no interest in going and spending. I mean, it's like calling Comcast, or AT&T, having one of these nightmare, or trying to reload your password again now that Google has this new system that every time you open anything, Google wants to get I mean, it's become a mess. And talk about stress. And that's what our politicians should be focused on all these other nonsense divisive issues.
I agree.
Because there's a huge opportunity to make some tweaks and reforms here that would make life so much better. But I got to tell you another thing. One of the things that I'm learning, there's a really good New Yorker article about the wisdom of the full body scan that came out about a month ago. In fact, if you can get the author, and I'm spacing on his name right now, exceptional writer for the New Yorker, who's writing and he's really going after longevity in some areas. And but he questioned the wisdom of a full body scan. And my wife Yaz, who's in Paris now, she's been watching me do all these tests and all this thing. And she goes, well, I want to do it. So she went and found somebody in Europe that did full body scans. And sure enough, they found an aneurysm in her brain. And it was 2.5 millimeters. And our whole family went into chaos. And my daughter-in-law's a doctor. She got involved. Everybody got involved. And we were scared to death that Yaz, this wonderful human being who's a bright light, who you'll meet at our event, could have this really serious issue. And after a lot of talk and discussion and expert after expert, and a very stressful month for her, we discovered that, one, it's lodged in a place where it's not very dangerous. It's very small. But the only information we didn't have is whether it was growing. So when I read the article where he basically trashed the idea of a full body scan, very much based on the kind of story my wife Yaz had, what turned out is that we thought about it, and she's going back next week to get the 3-month retest to see if it's growing, because that's a big issue. Is it growing? If it's not growing, we all have little things inside this mysterious thing, our container that's screwed up. But I went back and forth. I said, oh my God, body scans are bad. The article was so well written and well researched. And then I went, you know what I've always stood for is transparency, and I trust the public. And Yaz had this information. It was pretty demoralizing for a month until we kind of figured it out. But it is there in her brain. But in fact, all the doctors in Paris want to know, why did you do this? We don't do this. The only time people come in is when it bursts and they're dead or they're having a stroke.
Late.
So why did you do this? And she says, well, my crazy husband's into this crazy longevity movement. So, but the point of that story is that it's tough, like you might find some stuff you don't want to know about, and maybe that's better. And I get it's a philosophical question. And I think it's, again, all these questions that, we hope to put forth and be very candid about it. We're not, like, we have the CEO of Prenuvo, the founder there, but we made clear, you're going to be asked some hard questions, and don't make it a commercial for your product, because there's, we need to say, here it is, but here's the consequences. They may sound fantastic. Yeah. And another thing is confusion. I did what is it? Let me just look through that so I have the name properly. Mark Hyman's. I did his functional health. The 153 blood, the biomarkers, and I had these 156 biomarkers. Honestly, Jean, I didn't know what a goddamn biomarker was.
But it's overwhelming. They're way too much. Like, it's same as my DNA and me, or all these things. Like, what do you do with all these tests? Yeah.
So, John, I got to tell you, I had 156, 153 were fine, but 3 were wrong. And I kept leafleting and reading. And do I take a pill? What do I eat? And I had it on the desk, and I was going to send it to my doctor, but my doctor's sitting tired of me sending all these stupid tests. So I put it on this desk and looked at it every once in a while and looked it up on the internet. And I finally just stuffed it upstairs. I got 3 that are off, and I don't even really know what they are because I don't understand any of the language. And this is no bad rap on Mark Hyman. He has contributed so much. But I also realized this is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the answer is, if you're going to be DIY here and you're going to take care of your own life and your own health, you got to be ready to take a lot of data, right? Anyway, I'm rambling now. After 45 minutes, I ramble. Sorry.
Yeah, I love it because it's so true. On the other side of that, this is exactly what we think as well. There is too much information, and most people would love to live longer, but they are just like with a simple question: where do I start? What do I do? what is simple? Do I have to do those scans? Do I have to do those epigenetic testing? What's this marker whatsoever? On the other side, we have to admit something, okay? Most cancers, phase 1, phase 2, are not detectable if you don't do that scan. And the marker, sometimes they see it. So if you put everything in perspective, what are the chances of getting a cancer because of your genetics? Then that's it. So this
don't misunderstand my stories. I'm just trying to tell you what I think the public goes through when they start to get into your world where you all are familiar. I couldn't agree more. I want to know. And who wouldn't want to know? I mean, it's absolutely necessary.
But it's true. There is too much, and maybe one day some new algorithm and probably our artificial intelligence will help us to get into that direction, make things simple, accessible, and understandable, like what we're trying to do as media. And then people will understand and will do it more freely without stepping in and say, what the hell is going to happen to me? I don't know. And look, your 30 days of stress, that is a freaking oxidative situation that creates inflammation. Yeah. So you work out to get your life extended, and then you have 30 days inflammation that reduces your longevity drastically because of that. So it's, once again, it's balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it did make my wife extremely grateful for life, and she already was. She's a very happy, grateful person, but it made her like appreciate life in a new way, knowing, oh my gosh, it's kind of like when a parent dies or something. And it also made her very grateful to me, which I really appreciated. That was a joke.
That's always good to feel that way.
Yes.
All right. Brad, thank you so much. We're going to just remind people that this Livelong Summit is happening in West Palm Beach. We have March 15, March 16, starting at 3 on the first
Friday
day.
the 15th, yes.
Yeah, and we are at the convention center there.
Got plenty of room for thousands of people, which looks like we're going to have. It's shocking, the response. Now, one thing we did, I'll just tell you, and it's up there now, is we priced it. We didn't know what some people said. It's worth $2,000. It's worth $1,000. And we started out at $500 or $600. And we had a great response, but guess who was signing up? All the doctors and the medical professionals. And I went, wait a second, this isn't a business-to-business show. And so we're in this for the long term, and we know the agenda. So we reduced the prices to get the public there. Now guess who's signing up? The public. They're signing up in droves because we said, yes, it is probably worth more to some that have all the money, but we want it to be the public. So we're going to sell out. But the good news is that it's very accessible. You can get in now for $100. And so
I saw
that was very conscious and deliberate to we weren't having trouble selling tickets, but we weren't selling it to the wrong people. But now I'm excited. You know why, Jean? Because you're going to be sitting next to another person just like you, but on the other side is going to be a doctor. What could be better than that?
Yeah,
so that interaction between the medical professional and the public, because all these young medical people, doctors like my daughter-in-law, I mean, they're so busy, and this isn't what they signed up for. They didn't sign up for 15 minutes on the computer, stamping out patient after patient. And they want to know about this world, so they're coming in droves. And now I think it just, sometimes there's serendipity. As I tell my team, a few times in your life, the stars are aligned. And just at that moment, be super grateful because they never may be aligned again like they were at that moment.
Well, if you behave properly, they're probably going to be alive more often than they were before. It's all about finding your ikigai.
Yeah. I like you, Jean. You're coming. You're on stage, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm so happy.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very cool. And I love the concept. I love the principle. And I love the people that are speaking there. And you have a very great panel of speakers. There's many conferences out there today, and in French we say chapeau.
Yeah.
Because for once I see that you're getting people that are interested and can afford to get in, and this is beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You know what I collect? I collect hats. They're right over there. So I get the chapeau. Tip your hat. I love that.
I love it. Thank you, Brad. It was really an honor for me, and I look forward to meet you in person in a couple of weeks. So cool.
Great. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.